Good evening and welcome to the University of New South Wales Year 10 Subject Selection Information Evening. My name's Chris Lewis. I'm the Head of Partnerships here at the University, which really just means I get to make sure you've got all the information you need to make an informed decision about your university choices. Now this evening we've got lots and lots of information to cover, but before I get too far into that, I would like to acknowledge the Bedigal people, the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, and acknowledge their elders both past, present and emerging. We've got a really exciting program for you this evening, and we will be answering your questions in real time at the conclusion of this formal presentation. Myself and my colleagues will join you via our online platform, and you can start asking questions for us to answer right now. As we're not in pure real time, I'm not going to reference them during the presentation, but we will be with you at the end of the formal presentation. We've got a really exciting program this evening. Before we introduce our special guests, I'm going to take you through the HSC and what it means to be awarded that and how to structure your subjects. After that, we're going to introduce one of our very dear friends from the university's admissions centre, Trudy Nola, who'll talk to you about scaling in the ATAR. And then finally, we'll introduce one of our real-life students. We've managed to drag her away from classes to reflect a little bit on where she was when she was sitting where you were, and thinking about the way that she needed to make her choices as she headed towards university. As I said, lots of time for questions at the end of the day. We're also available via live chat and via phone, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. If you do have any questions, we're still available for all of those questions at any point in time. The HSC is the qualification that you'll be awarded once you complete your years 11 and 12 of schooling. Obviously, you've got an interest in completing that, which is why you're attending our Year 10 Information Evening this evening to think about the subjects that you're going to select. It's important to know the way that the HSC is structured. All of your courses in the HSC have a unit value. Most of them are 2 units, which equate to about 120 hours of study and a HSC result out of 100. Some courses are 1 unit, and this is equivalent to 60 hours of study and a HSC result out of 50. Most of those 1 unit courses are extension courses, so extension mathematics, extension English, enabling 3 or 4 units of courses to be studied within that particular field of interest that you may have. Now, it's important to know the different types of HSC courses. You can see here on the slide that we've got our board developed courses, which involve always a HSC examination. So you would be very used to sitting exams by now. There's plenty more of those to come as you head into year 11 and 12. And your board developed courses may be included in the calculation of your Australian Tertiary Admission rank or your ATAR, which we're going to delve into a little bit further as we go through the evening. Some board developed courses do also include vocational education and training courses and your life skill courses. Now there are of course board endorsed courses. They don't necessarily involve an exam. They are school-based assessment only, but tonight we'll be mainly focusing in on your board developed courses. So there's 2 categories. Category A courses, which may be included in the calculation of your ATAR. They include compulsory examinations, and Category B courses. So you can take no more than 2 units of Category B courses to be included in the calculation of your ATAR, and they may have an optional exam as part of those. That often involves your vet curriculum style courses, are generally your Category Bs. So to be awarded the HSC at the end of your schooling, you need to have, in Year 11, completed a minimum of 12 units, and you must complete your Year 11 courses before you progress into Year 12. Once you get to Year 12, you can do a minimum of 10 units. We're often asked, should I do extra? Should I do more? I think the important thing to know there is that you do meet the minimum for being awarded your HSC. And the good news is that your school, your career advisor, your year advisor is absolutely expert in making sure you're sitting the right courses. So don't get too hung up on that information. Now, further requirements for the HSC include 2 units of compulsory English. You will all be doing English, at least 6 units of board developed courses, at least 3 courses of 2 units value or greater, and at least 4 subjects including English. And in recent years, NESA has introduced the requirement that a maximum of 6 units of science may be included in Year 11, and a maximum then of 7 units may be included in a Year 12 pattern of study. That was done so that you can maintain some balance in your schooling. It's great to love either the humanities or the sciences over the other, but we do want you to maintain some balance in the schooling throughout your course of Year 11 and 12. Now, you do need to meet the minimum standards in literacy and numeracy. So from this year onwards, you do need to sit the online tests of basic literacy and numeracy skills, and you'll find that your school will communicate when those tests are. Essentially, reading, numeracy and writing. You've got a 45-minute multiple choice test. For those of you that have studied the NAPLAN over the courses of your schooling, this won't be too much of a shock to you as you go through that system. So to satisfactorily complete a course, you must follow the curriculum that's been endorsed by NESA. That's really important, but again, schools are expert at making sure that you do that. There's also the rule here that you must apply yourself with diligence and sustained effort to the set tasks and experience provided in the course by the school, and achieve some or all of the course outcomes. So you've got to show up at least most of the time, I think, if we read between the lines on that one. Your VET board developed courses, of course, may require you to do some form of work placement as well. Couple of other additional requirements. The good news is with this stream of content, you're able to go back and watch this over and over again. So additional completion requirements for HSC courses include you must complete HSC assessment tasks that contribute in excess of 50% of available marks in courses where internal assessment marks are submitted. Now, I'll just recap over that because that gets a little bit technical and wordy. So you must complete all of the tasks that your school assigned to you. So there's 50% of your grades are coming from the coursework that is given to you in class. You must complete all of those, and you must sit for and make a serious attempt at any exams that you have as part of your HSC. In recent years, NES has also introduced the HSC All My Own Work program, which we're very big fans of here in the university sector. You would have heard terms such as plagiarism before, and this program's been brought in to really teach you some of those academic foundational skills. So thinking about how do we reference, how do we make sure that our sources are acknowledged, how do we avoid copying somebody else, and how do we make sure that we acknowledge where we get our information from. So you're seeing a lot of our slides tonight. We actually do print the source in there because we do take that referencing very seriously in the way that we approach things at the university. So it's good for you to wrap your head around those skills nice and early. There's also a little bit of a touch on working with others and working as part of a team, of course, which becomes very important as you enter into the university environment. At the end of your HSC, apart from looking forward to it, you can also look forward to the different records of school achievement that you're going to be given. You will have an e-record issued to you by NESA, which includes your record of school achievement, or ROSA. You will also then be awarded your HSC, which includes results for each of your subjects. So this is where we start talking about Band 5, Band 6 results, and then they feed into your ATAR, which we're going to cover next. So your HSC Reporter Mark, as I said, there is made up of 50% internal assessment and 50% external examination, and that then becomes your HSC Reported Mark. So that's how it's calculated. How do you actually choose what you're going to do? That's the question that we get more often than not in the university sector, and I don't have a silver bullet answer for you, I'm afraid, this evening. What I will advise against is spinning a wheel and hoping for the best. There's a little bit of science to the way that we make those sort of decisions. So we often talk about passion, and we often talk about following your passion in the university sector. That's one layer of advice, but it's not a complete layer of advice. It's important to consider what you're good at as well. I'm particularly passionate about AFL, but unfortunately haven't pursued a career in there because I'm not very good at it. So you do have to take a realistic view of your course selection and make sure you play to both your strengths and your interests. Absolutely follow your passion, but make sure that you're motivated to do the best that you possibly can in the courses that you do select to sit. Important also that you consider your career aspirations and needs. We're often asked by different students, if I want to be a scientist, should I do purely science subjects in my HSC? We will always advocate a balance, and we will always advocate for you to go as broadly as you possibly can in your schooling before you start to abstract it down into a particular niche as you go through university. So have a think about what subjects are complementary to each other, what subjects you're likely to be able to package up and get co-learning off. So physics and mathematics, for example, go quite nicely as a package. Complementary subjects that you can think about in the way that you structure your year 11 and 12 choices. We also ask you to think about, what do I want for my future? Now, you don't have to decide that all right now. I think it's important to acknowledge to both you, mum and dad, and you, the student yourself, that we don't expect you to have all the answers to those questions right now. I'm still trying to work out what I want to do when I grow up, so please don't feel like you need to decide those answers immediately. Really start to think about what you're loving and what your strengths are. Don't necessarily settle in on a job. Somewhere around 60 to 70% of students enter university not knowing what they ultimately want to do for the rest of their lives, and most of them chop and change and try a few different things. You've probably heard the old cliche as well that most of our graduates now will have around 7 different careers in their working life. So that's not just job, that's 7 different career paths, which is quite incredible when you think about it. So we know that employers are looking for broad skills. We know that it's important to be as broadly skilled as you possibly can across your subject selection. That's something that we really value as a university. It's always good to ask for advice from your teachers, your parents, your year advisor and your career advisor as well. And I'd throw friends into that as well. Your friends are often quite insightful about what you're passionate about and what you're good at. So really think about gathering advice from all of those different channels as you start to make that decision and start to dive into that. And if you do want more information on how your HSC is structured, jump onto educationstandards.newsouthwales.edu.au, where you'll find the NESA website, and you can review all of those information, bits and pieces about how to structure your HSC in a logical, coherent, and a fashion that's going to best support you. And of course, your school is going to provide you with expert guidance in that sort of space. Now, the big question, of course, is once you've chosen your subjects, how does your ATAR then get calculated, and how can you game the system to get the best result that you possibly can? So instead of me telling you how to do that, I'm going to introduce a very special guest from the university's Admission Centre, UACT, another acronym. But it's my great pleasure to welcome this evening Trudy Nola from UACT to explain to you exactly how the ATAR gets calculated, how scaling works, and what you really need to be thinking about as you go down into that pointy end of your high schooling.
Thank you very much for having me here today, Chris. You know, I love coming to visit the people here at UNSW because they love their students and they love to encourage students to do their absolute best. So hi, my name's Trudy, I'm from UACT. And what is UACT? Well, UACT, of course, is a centralised office that basically looks after university applications on behalf of 27 different institutions, with UNSW being one of them. We also look after access schemes, and these are special schemes such as early entry or special consideration, once again for our universities. We're not talking about those tonight. The one thing that we will be talking about is the fact that UACT does calculate the ATAR for all New South Wales HSC students. So the ATAR, what is it? Everybody talks about it, everybody worries about it. I'm hoping after our chat this evening that you will walk away thinking, hey, it's not so bad. So before we talk about the calculation of the ATAR, what I want to describe to you is the difference between HSC marks and the ATAR. At the end of Year 12, all students will receive an HSC certificate that shows all courses that they have completed, including the HSC mark that they have achieved for each of those courses and the performance band that that mark aligns to. The performance bands, of course, go from 1 to 6, with 6 being the highest. Those HSC marks, of course, will tell you how well your son or daughter has performed in each of their courses. So performance. The ATAR, it is one number. That one number is then going to tell you where your son or daughter is positioned amongst all other students in the state. So performance versus position. We often talk about it like being in a running race because everybody understands that running race scenario. And that is that all Year 12 students are in that race. And at the very end, your son or daughter may be standing at the finish line thinking, hey, I've just done my personal best performance. We've never run that fast before. However, when they look around, they'll think, well, I've just done my personal best, but when I look where everybody else is, I'm actually positioned in the middle of the pack. So performance versus position. And at the end of the day, the only thing that a student can control in the whole scenario of HSC and ATAR is how well they're going to perform. They can't control their position because they can't control the competition. Like in the running race, they can't control how everybody else is running. So, performance versus position. But what is the ATAR? The ATAR, of course, the Australian Tertiary Admissions rank, is just that. It is a rank, it is not a mark or a score. It will not define your son or daughter as a student for the rest of their lives. It just tells us that at the end of Year 12, where they're positioned for the sole purpose of university entry. And I think we lose sight of that. We have to remember that students are working towards a qualification, and that qualification is the HSC. The ATAR is a byproduct that we use to help universities select their students. So once again, it is a rank, not a mark. It shows your overall position. It is a number between 0 and 99.95 and used for university entry, and that is it. Once they're into university, nobody really ever asks about it again. So ATAR eligibility, and you would have heard Chris say this, in Year 11, students are required to complete 12 units of study to satisfy the HSC eligibility. In Year 12, however, students are required to do a minimum of 10 units of board-developed courses, and that, of course, can include up to 2 units of Category B courses. If your son or daughter is completing a Category B course, they must, of course, sit the optional exam, because if they don't, of course, that course is no longer viable for consideration in the calculation. So once again, 12 units for Year 11, minimum of 10 units for Year 12. If your son or daughter takes on more than 10 units of study in Year 12, then fantastic. But if they only do 10 units, that is okay as well. So how do we calculate the ATAR? The ATAR, of course, is calculated using your best 2 units of English and the next best remaining units. When we calculate it, we are not using the HSC marks that NESA report to you. We are using scaled marks. So not the HSC marks, but scaled marks. When we're calculating that ATAR, when we use the best 2 units of English first, that could be just your advanced course. It could include extension courses. If you're a student taking English Studies, which is a Category B course, that can only be your one Category B course. However, you're going to university, I expect you're going to be doing the higher levels of English because that is going to best prepare you for your study once you get to university. So, 2 units of English, next best remaining units, with only 2 units of Category B courses that can be included. Scaling, what is it? How do we do it and why? These are questions that most students ask in regards to scaling because they are worried about whether the courses that they are going to choose are going to be scaled well or not so well. In reality, the first step of calculating the ATAR is the scaling process. It is 119 simultaneous equations that takes away the difference between patterns of study. Last year, 70,000 HSC students and 27,000 different patterns of study. If there are 27,000 different patterns of study, how do we put everybody on a more level playing field? How do we compare students who have got mainly maths and science subjects with those who are studying humanities? You always see students talk about, oh, well, if I do visual arts or I do drama, I'm going to be scaled downwards. But in actual fact, we are scaling so that no student is either advantaged or disadvantaged because of their course choice. We want everybody to be considered fairly. Like NESA does a thing called moderation of assessment marks. They moderate assessment marks to take away the difference between schools because of the way they mark and so forth. We scale to take away those differences between the courses students take. Nothing is actually going to scale you up or down. The only thing that will scale a student up or down is themselves, their effort. We're not actually scaling courses, we're scaling students' academic ability within the course. So, as I said, some truths about scaling, and that is we are scaling students' academic ability within each course. The scaled mean of a course, and you can find this information on the UACT website, but the scaled mean of a course indicates, of course, the strength of the competition within a course. So, for instance, physics, in general, has a higher scale mean than courses such as visual arts or history. Courses with a high scale mean, of course, tells us that the academic ability of the students in that course is quite high. Subjects with a lower scale mean just tells us that the academic ability of the students in that course varies from high to low. It does not mean that you cannot achieve a high ATAR where a course that has a low scale mean can be included, because you absolutely can. And last year, I can tell you that one of our 99.95 students studied drama and it was included in the calculation of their ATAR. So, really, what's it about? It's about picking subjects that you're good at, that you have an ability for, and of course subjects that will help you achieve your best when you get into university. Subjects that are going to really help you be successful. So some data from last year. This is just going to reiterate what I've been saying and pulling together some of the information. And that is that last year, when you have a look at this list of courses from industrial technology, business studies, English advanced, visual arts, mathematics, physics, Aboriginal studies, French continuous, and then hospitality, which is one of our Category B courses, you can see the next column shows you the median performance band. Now, those performance bands are what your HSC marks align to. This has no bearing on the ATAR calculation whatsoever, but it just gives you a bit of information that shows you where most of the marks lie. So, for instance, for the majority of these courses, a band 4 or 5 is about it. So a band 4, these are marks that lay between 70 and 79. A band 5, 80 to 89. A band 6, 90 to 100. So you can see the picture. For the majority of HSC courses, a band 4 is about it, and that's because about 40% of students get marks in this area. Now, if we have a look at the next column, the median mark, this is always interesting to take note of. Mums and dads often think, you know, well, when I was at school, we got marks above 50, we passed, fantastic. You know, that's really giving us an indication of how well we're doing. But these days it's very different. And HSC marks, in general, are between 50 and 100, not 1 and 100. Only band 1 students get marks below 50. So this median mark is actually telling us where the middle student is actually lying. And for most courses, it's 75 and above. And there's only about 14 courses with a median mark less than 75. And you can see for some of these courses, such as English Advanced or Visual Arts, the median mark last year was 82. The next column, the HSC mean, or the average performance in the course, you can see that that is not that much different from the median mark. If we have a look at the next column, the scaled mean of the course. And this is what a lot of people will look at and say, well, see, you've scaled me down because that number looks very different to the HSC mean. But we're talking about the average position of the students when we talk about the scaled mean. We're also talking about the strength of the competition. So for instance, industrial tech or Aboriginal studies or even hospitality have a lower scaled mean than some other courses such as English Advanced. But the scaled mean in general is always lower than the HSC mean because one's telling us about performance, one about position. However, if we look at the last column shows us the maximum ATAR achieved last year where both units of the course were included in a student's ATAR calculation. Now, if we look at Aboriginal studies, it has a fairly low scale mean, but the maximum last year was 99.3. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd be pretty happy with that. And for the majority of courses, you will find that the maximum ATAR is in the high 90s. So remember, it's about picking subjects that you are good at, that you have the ability for, and really putting the effort into the courses that you would like to take on. I'm now going to introduce you to Fred and Laura. And Fred and Laura, of course, are two students who have completed exactly the same HSC courses. Fred gets marks of 70, Laura marks of 80, and as you can see, their ATARs are very different. Fred's ATAR with marks of 70 is 58.7, where Laura has an ATAR of 78.7. Most students will look at Fred's ATAR and think, well, hang on, that doesn't represent a mark of 70. That's not even an average. What do you mean? There's something happening. Something's gone wrong. There's a mistake. Oh, I know. You scaled me down because I did visual arts. That is typical speak from students when they look at Fred's ATAR, but in actual fact, that's not the scenario. Because remember, we're not using HSC marks to calculate the ATAR, we're using scaled marks. The actual story behind the ATAR here is not in the marks of these students, but in the percentile column, because the percentile column is telling us where these students are positioned in each of their courses. So for instance, a mark of 70 last year in biology placed Fred in the 42nd percentile. What does that mean? Well, it means that 58% of students got marks better than Fred, remembering the ATAR is about position. Now, Laura, on the other hand, a mark of 80 put her in the 71st percentile. So she only had 29% of students ahead of her. Fantastic. English Advanced last year, a mark of 70 put Fred in the 10th percentile. So 90% of students had marks better than him. Where Laura, on the other hand, mark of 80 still positioned her in the bottom 50% of students because remember, the median mark was 82 last year. If we even just look at the median mark and compare that with Fred's marks, you can see that for all courses, his mark lies below the middle. The percentile column shows you that he is positioned in the bottom 50% for all courses. So if he's in the bottom 50% for all courses, then why would we give him a median ATAR, which last year was 69.75? Why would we give him a median ATAR or above? Remember, it's about position. To be positioned better or more like Laura, you have to be getting marks on or above the median HSC marks. This is the best that I can tell you. It's all about studying hard in the courses that you have chosen and, of course, giving that effort. Because remember that ATAR is also telling us about what kind of effort your son or daughter is putting into their studies. So, choosing HSC courses, it's really about your interests. You also, are they ATAR courses? Are they a good foundation for success at university? And are they satisfying any university course prerequisites or even assumed knowledge or recommended studies? It's a great way of thinking about selecting your HSC courses. Your school can certainly guide you through that because they know your academic ability. And of course, it's a really good time to start researching the different studies that you can take outside of school, because that will also help you pick those subjects that will help you get that foundation for success later on. So remember, of course, the ATAR is, of course, just a rank, not a mark. Choose courses you like and are good at, and of course, explore all your options. It's a really good way to do it. So exploring those options are certainly going to help you down the track. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Trudy. We're very lucky to have the support of UACT here this evening. Now, normally, once you get your ATAR at the end of Year 12, you apply through the university's admissions centre. This year, the application closing date is the 30th of September, and in 2 years' time, which I'm sure you're all counting down to, make sure that you check those specific dates. Now, in terms of getting into UNSW specifically, we pioneered a method called guaranteed entry here at the University of New South Wales. What that means is that we publish the ATAR every year that will get you into your course, and that's what you need to achieve. Now, what we look at to get you in there is your selection rank, and I'm going to talk about that momentarily, but our guaranteed entry applies to most of our UNSW degrees. Your selection rank then, of course, is your ATAR plus any eligible adjustment factors that may be applicable to you, and we'll talk through some of those in a moment. When we look at your application, we always look at assumed knowledge into our courses. Now, at UNSW, we don't have any prerequisites. You'll see across the sector, you do sometimes see things like mathematics prerequisites creep in for particular courses. We at UNSW mainly use assumed knowledge. Now, assumed knowledge simply means that we assume that you have studied that course in Year 11 and 12, and we're going to jump in at a senior level. Now, you can catch up if you do need to, but we will jump in assuming that you've already got foundational knowledge in those areas. We do apply some additional selection criteria to a number of our different programs. If you're interested in studying aviation, you need to apply to us directly so that we can assess your eligibility for that program. If you're interested in studying law, you need to sit the Law Admissions Test, or LAT. You can sit that in both Year 11 and 12, and we will take your best result into consideration. If you're interested in studying medicine, you need to sit the UCAT, typically in Year 12. Keep an eye out on dates. That's normally in the first half of the year. If you're interested in studying music, you do need to audition for us, and you'll find information in your Year 12 year on what that audition looks like and what we're looking for. If you're planning to study at UNSW Canberra, the application requirements are slightly different, and jump onto our website to have a look at those in detail. If you're interested in one of our co-op scholarships, which I'm going to talk about momentarily, there are some additional criteria that you need to address for that as well. Now, we're always asked about adjustment factors. Our predominant form of adjustment factor at UNSW is HSC Plus, which recognises your performance in relevant subjects to the degree that you may be wishing to study in. You can jump onto our Future Students website there and review our HSC Plus calculator, but it's, for example, if you wanted to study arts and you did really well in English at school, we'd be giving you some adjustment factors to recognise that we think you're a good fit for that program. You can use a maximum of 10 points towards your admission across all adjustment factor schemes, but most of the specific schemes will allow you up to 5. So HSC Plus, for example, is up to 5 adjustment factors. I should also mention our HSC Plus is automatically applied to your application. You don't need to apply for that. We will have a look at your Year 12 subjects and make sure that you are given any adjustment factors that you may be eligible for. If you're interested in our Elite Athlete and Performers program, you do need to apply to us directly, typically by the end of November in the year in which you are applying. Now, educational access is all done through UACT. If you have any factors such as long-term illness, financial hardship, language difficulties or educational disadvantage, you apply directly through the university's admissions centre, who will do an assessment on the impact of that on your studies and tell us so that we can then apply some adjustment factors for you. UNSW Gateway looks at the level of disadvantage associated with your school's geographic and socioeconomic status. So it's a good idea to jump onto the website and see if you might be eligible there. In general, our Gateway entry is automatically assessed, but we do have a number of schemes where you may need to check specific eligibility requirements, including our new opportunity to enter medicine via that scheme, as I alluded to earlier. We do have a number of faculty programs that look to support you getting into UNSW. In a number of different areas, we'll assess a portfolio of your work to have a look at what you've done so far and assess your eligibility. So art and design, for example, which you're going to hear a little bit more about very shortly, we allow you to submit a portfolio of your work, and the same for the built environment programs. So we're interested in seeing your passion and a little bit of your early emerging talent. We do have some really good explainer videos on those faculty websites where you can have a look at what we're looking for in a portfolio. Our Faculty of Engineering admissions scheme really looks to test your passion for engineering. So we ask you to upload a small video, and then we also look at your performance in subjects that are related to engineering, such as mathematics. And now we also, for the Bachelor of Medical Studies, we have a rural entry scheme, as well as an Indigenous entry scheme, and as I mentioned earlier, our new Gateway LSES scheme. So you do need to apply directly for entry into those programs. So it's worth having a look now. We're often asked what you should do if you don't get into your dream degree at UNSW. There's a couple of ways that you can have a think about that. The first is through our internal program transfer, or IPT. We allow students to switch between different degrees if they are able to perform really, really well in their first year of study. So as you get a little bit closer to year 12, you can come and explore what that might look like. We also look at graded TAFE diplomas and completed year of study at other institutions. We've got a number of different other programs available for mature age students and our Indigenous prep program. So it's worth jumping onto our website and having a look there if you might be eligible for those areas. We're always asked in Year 10 about scholarships as well, so we're going to cover those off briefly as well. We award a significant amount of scholarships across a wide range of different criteria coming into the university. I think the main thing to know is that we're looking to attract really excited students who are able to contribute something to university life here at UNSW. We want to be able to support you financially as part of your studies to free you up, allow you to focus carefully on both your studies and your extracurricular activities and your participation in university life. So we also look to encourage enrolment in particular areas of study where there's a need for that and recognise some of your academic and other achievements. So we're always looking for what you've been up to in year 11 and 12. We get asked all the time, should I drop all of my extracurricular activities and just focus on my academics? Our advice is always no. We think that we want you to be a well-rounded person, so the more that you're able to put into that through year 11 and 12, the more you're going to have to write in a scholarship application. We're looking at your particular interest in an area of study. If you write in a scholarship application, I've always wanted to do commerce since the day I was born. First, I'm going to say you're a very advanced baby, but I'm also going to think you probably haven't thought through exactly why you might want to do commerce at the University of New South Wales. So have a think about our strengths, your strengths, and how they align, and then give us a really compelling reason and tell us what you've thought about to get you to that point of decision making as well. As I mentioned earlier, we're also looking for people to contribute to UNSW student life. So have a think about our areas of strength and have a think about where you might fit in within that. Our UNSW Co-op program is one of our flagship scholarship programs. It's the sort of scholarship that is more than money. It gives you an actual employment opportunity as you go through your studies. And in fact, right at the selection point, we have you interviewing with employers to decide if you're a good fit for their organisation. It connects you with more than 3,000 co-op alumni and really develops connections with over 150 leading Australian companies. On top of that, we add the financial support element, which currently stands at $19,600 per year for a minimum of 4 years. Now, you do need to apply for those scholarships directly to the co-op program. So when you're in year 12, worth jumping on and having a look there. We generally align the closing dates for those scholarships with the UACT early bird on time date. So this year, that's at the end of September. 3 tips for applying to scholarships. Tip number 1 is be specific. Think about what you have to offer the University of New South Wales and what we can offer you. Make sure you understand what our courses have to offer you and make sure you understand what you can bring to us in our student life. Find your difference. Tell us what makes you unique. Go and ask mum and dad what makes you unique, and really get them to help you with your application as well. I promise you the mum and dad are probably better about boasting about your achievements than you are, so get them to help you amp up your application to the next level. And always jump in early, plan out your responses, and think about the fact that our scholarship assessors have thousands of these applications to read. So the more concise, considered, and cohesive your application is, the more likely it is to resonate with our assessors. Now, I think you've heard enough from me, so let's bring up one of our real life students to tell you a little bit about what she was thinking when she was sitting exactly where you were a number of years ago. We're going to bring up and hear from this evening Jenny, who's studying science and fine arts. She's going to tell you how that all fits together to meet all of her interests at UNSW.
Thanks, Chris. Good evening, students and parents, and thanks for tuning in. My name's Jenny, and I'm in my final year at UNSW doing a double degree in science and fine arts with a major in psychology. Today, I'm going to share a little bit about myself and the kind of choices I made on my journey to UNSW, as well as some of the exciting opportunities and experiences I've had here. So, I've always been the creative kid for as long as I can remember, and always knew that I wanted to pursue a creative degree. But I also had a growing interest in psychology after a little bit of contact I had with a charity, Cara House, in my final years of school. After watching the work they did, I knew that I wanted to pursue both art and psychology to maybe lead me down a career path where I could use creative programs for positive change, so trauma rehabilitation or art therapy. In school, I was fortunate enough to have the academic support to excel in both my humanities and my STEM subjects. When I was where you guys are now, thinking about my subjects for the HSC, my teachers urged me to pursue maths and science, you know, the so-called good scaling subjects because I had the marks for them. But the truth was, I didn't love maths or science as much as I did the creative disciplines. I enjoyed and I was good at creative writing, making, and lateral thinking. So in the end, I chose visual arts, design technology, advanced and extension English, ancient history, and SOR. I also did advanced maths in my prelim year to please my mother, and I ranked well, but I didn't love the course, so I didn't put a lot of effort in, and I dropped it prior to my HSC year. So why am I telling you this? It's so I can share the same advice that my mentor gave me when I was in year 10. It was, regardless of what anyone else might tell you, ultimately you need to choose subjects that you're interested in and that you care about. Because if you care about what you do, you're going to want to work at it, and the curiosity is going to push you ahead in the cohort. So you're going to be motivated to read a little bit more, or to write a little bit more, or to make a bit more. In all my subjects, I ranked at or near the top of my cohort, not because I did the same work as everyone else, but because I put in extra hours. The truth is, if you only do what everyone else is doing, you're only going to do as well as everyone else. So with my subjects sorted and my final years of schooling locked into studying disciplines I actually cared about, I began looking at universities. So I researched online and made a point of visiting every institution in Sydney multiple times so I could get all of my questions answered and get a feel for the place. In the end, UNSW resonated the most because it had a vibrant community and a really strong emphasis on innovation and creativity and endless opportunities to grow and to be challenged as a student and as a person. When considering the courses, the programs, I made sure to look into assumed knowledge for each because I knew it would give me an indication of the kind of content I'd be coming into contact with. But like Chris mentioned, here at UNSW, we don't have subject prerequisites for any of our degrees. And this is for the same reason I've already brought up. It's if you actually love something and you're dedicated to it, then you'll be willing to put in the extra effort to learn about it. Plus, we have academic support, staff and students, summer bridging courses. There's always a way to make sure you're prepared for the degree you end up pursuing. So when I received my ATAR, I found I'd met the guaranteed entry rank for the Bachelor of Psychology, the Bachelor of Fine Arts, and the double degree that combined the two, which is ultimately where I ended up. At this point, I didn't have any formal background in science or Year 12 mathematics, but I knew I was interested in psychology and I knew that would help push me ahead in the course. During my time at university, I've had the opportunity to meet leaders in psych research and some of the top creative practitioners in the country. I've hosted and contributed to exhibitions, I've painted murals all the way across Sydney, worked digitally in corporate environments with my creative work. I've collaborated on works that have appeared in large cultural events like the Sydney Film Festival, and contributed to events like Vivid, the Festival of Dangerous Ideas, the Sydney Festival, the Radical Sydney. With all this, I've developed skills that I never thought I'd have the opportunity to learn, from working with statistical programs to making my own jewellery. I found it to be really important to strike a good balance between your studies and your extracurriculars. This applies as much to uni as it does to your senior years in high school. It ensures that you have the opportunity to relax while still engaging in things that interest you. On top of this, you'll find that these pursuits are equally important in helping you grow as a student and as an individual. As such, I've done my very, very best to soak up all I can with uni life. I've attended social events, both on the Kensington and Paddington campuses, been to exhibition openings hosted by the university and by my peers. I regularly attend society events and talks, make use of the metal, timber, jewellery, ceramic, virtual reality makerspaces on campus. I've been to networking events and career fairs, participated in psych studies, mentoring programs, O-Week celebrations, and more or less made use of all the support services our student council has to offer, from second-hand clothing markets to counselling and psych services and legal support. With all of this, UNSW is, beyond any shadow of doubt, the best decision for me. It did, however, take a bit of time to work this out. So my final piece of advice for you is to give yourself time over the coming years, do plenty of research in order to make the best decision for you. Talk to your teachers and your parents, your careers advisors, older siblings, friends. Go to all the university open days, read undergraduate guides and course guides, attend info nights like this one, and chat with as many current students and academics as you possibly can to find out what excites them about their studies or about their work. In the end, the more research you do, the easier it'll be to find the right place for you and the best pathway to get there. And if you're still not sure, don't panic. Universities are really flexible places, so begin by trying subjects that you enjoy and seeing where they take you. You can always transfer degrees down the track if you change your mind or figure out something new. And on that note, I want to wish all of you the very best on your journey. Good luck, enjoy the next few years, and hopefully I'll see you around campus real soon.
Thanks for that, Jenny. You can see how excited our students are about studying here at UNSW. That's the end of our stream for this evening. Hopefully you found the information useful and you don't have to go back and watch it too many times over to get the fact that we're really excited to welcome you here to UNSW in the future. We're going to continue answering your questions into the evening, so please do stay in touch with us. There's lots of other ways that you can stay in touch with us as well, and those channels are up on your screen now. We're also hoping that our Open Day will still be able to proceed in September. At this point in time, we will be holding Open Day on Saturday, the 5th of September, and we really hope that you can join us on campus then. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.